It's a meeting of the Concord Middle School Building Committee. Today's Thursday, April 11th, 2024, approximately 7:30 a.m. I'm going to call roll. Alexa Anderson. No Alexa. Court Booth.
Present.
Q. Heather Bout.
Good morning.
Morning. Justin Cameron. No Justin. Bob Conry.
Good morning.
Morning. Gail Dowd.
Good morning.
Good morning. Peter Fishalis.
Here.
Good morning. Don Goriello, I'm present. Russ Hughes.
Here.
Hey, Russ. Tim. Holt. Tim. I know you're here. Are you hiding? Oh,
I'm
Justin
here.
is-
I was muted. Sorry.
Oh, okay. And Justin is here. Hey, Justin, I see you, but
Good morning.
good morning. Let's see. So Tim Holt's here. Lori Hunter.
Good morning.
Morning. Mark Howell.
Here.
Hey, Mark. Carrie LaFleur.
Good morning, Dawn.
Morning. Pat Nelson.
Here.
Good morning. Pat's on vacation, so thanks for joining us.
You're
Chris-
welcome.
Chris Popoff.
Good morning.
Morning. Charlie Parker. No Charlie. Matt Root.
Good morning.
Morning. Eric Sims.
Good morning.
Morning. Steve Stashetsky.
Good morning.
Good morning. All right. Good group here today. Good morning, everyone. First order of business, approval of meeting minutes, March 21st, 2024. Did everyone have a chance to take a look? Any comments, changes, edits? If not, any motions to approve?
Sure, move to approve.
Thank you, Heather. We have a motion. Any seconds?
Second.
Thank you very much. We have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I will take a vote. Alexa, has she joined us? Let me know if someone sees Alexa. Court Booth.
Approve, yes. Okay.
Thank you. Heather.
Yes.
Thank you. Peter.
Abstain. Was not
Okay.
there.
Tom Goriello, I'm a yes. Tim.
Abstain. I wasn't there also.
Lori Hunter.
Yes.
Mark Howell.
Yes.
Pat Nelson.
Yes.
Chris Popoff.
Yes.
Matt Root.
Yes.
Eric Sims. Oh, sorry. Eric's not a voting member. Sorry. Steve Stashetsky.
Yes.
Great. Thank you. The motion passes. All right. Next order of business, correspondence communication. Heather, putting you on the spot.
By the way, I just joined
Oh, hey,
Dawn.
Charlie. Hey, thank you for letting me know. Appreciate it. Welcome.
Hi, guys. Let's see. We have a few emails from last time. We actually got 5 since last time. Let's see. 2 of them were purely thanks from community members, which was so nice to see. I'm hoping everybody enjoyed that. One was a question about playground equipment. One was soliciting to sell contract furniture, and then a question I'm sure everyone saw from Mark Caruso of CCY basketball offering to help raise money to outfit the gym with equipment. So I'm sure we'll be coordinating with him. So really nice to hear from our community that way. And on communication, no updates. We're still sending nothing different. We're still sending our updates and nothing new to report there.
Okay. And I think there was an email last night from our FinCom representative, Suresh.
Oh, I don't.
So were you not on that? I think that went
Wait.
to the whole committee now. Maybe it didn't. He was asking about backup to some of the change orders we're talking about. So I believe Carrie LaFleur responded. So if it didn't go to everyone, that they're just doing their due diligence. The
Got it. No, I didn't see that one. I don't think it went to everyone.
Okay, maybe it didn't go to everyone, but just want to recognize that they're doing their due diligence on, some of the finances and looking to see some of the backups. So happy to share that. And Carrie has responded. So thank you, Carrie, for doing that. Matt Root, I see your hand.
Thanks, Don. I just have a question on Mark's email about fundraising. What are the next steps? Where does that go from here?
I think, not Carrie, my brain is mush today. Lori offered to reach out to him. I think there was a similar request with Lori, maybe you can speak to this, but.
Sure, yeah. So I think I offered to reach out and connect. Justin's actually excited to connect with them, so I'm gonna let him run point with basketball. I had a similar email offline of the committee from CCY baseball. So we've gotten them a little bit of information so they can just know what the plan is, and then we'll coordinate what they might be able to help with. We'll certainly bring all the ideas to the committee, but really great partnerships already starting, so.
And I think everyone saw, but Mark is coming off of the board and has offered to sort of spearhead it, which is great. So
Yeah.
I responded to just him saying, you know, just because I don't want to violate any open meeting laws, but just said, you know, thank you for reaching out. Lori will be in touch. So yeah, that's a great opportunity and appreciate him doing that.
Yeah.
We're
All
very
right.
lucky to have community who is reaching out and so supportive of this whole thing. It's great. Just so grateful. for that.
Absolutely. And I didn't know about baseball either until Lori mentioned it. So that's great too. So lots of resources from this project going back to our community. So we appreciate
Yeah.
them
Yeah.
reaching
And those
out.
will have to formally be donated and accepted through the school committee. So there's, you know, we're not going to be running off and just deciding things by ourselves, but just getting
course.
conversations started.
Yeah, no, it's great. All right, awesome. I think that might be everything on communication, Heather. Yes.
I think so.
Very good. Thank you. All right. Ian, I'm going to turn it over to the OPM update. If you would walk us through all of what you've got today.
Great. Thank you, Don. We've got quite a bit of ground to cover, but I'll go through the agenda here. All right. So we've got financial update. We have 3 change orders that we'll be looking at today. We were able to make significant progress on that front, which is great. So just want to get you guys up to speed on what we've been working on and vetting through the change order process, and then go through the construction report. We do have CMLP with us today, and they'll be doing an update on their project as well. So look out for that after the OPM update. So I'll jump right in here to the budget summary. So what you're seeing here is, you know, we last met 3 weeks ago, so not too much has happened as far as processing invoices. Yeah.
Yeah, if I can interrupt you, can you full screen your budget? And I've got my best reading glasses on and I'm having a hard time reading it. Yes, that's better. Thank you. Oh, that was better. Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay. Yep. Sorry about that. So not too much has happened in the past 3 weeks as far as invoice processing. We'll go over that, but again, made good progress on PCOs, and that's what we'll be reviewing a little later. But this change order line is reflective of that. So the last time we met, we had more money forecasted out there for changes. We've now shifted that to committed pending approvals of the PCOs today. So those PCOs we'll be reviewing in a little bit are reflected here in the committed costs and in the budget. So we pushed those over from forecasted. So we've got a much smaller bucket of forecasted costs at this point. You know, construction expenditures to date, 28.6 million, 37,000 in change orders that we paid out for change order work that's been completed. So not too much in the way of changes for the A&E, the administrative costs, FF&E, no change. So total expenditures to date are 37.6 million. And the committed costs are at 99.3 of the 111.5. So we've got some cushion there for commitments. And that's generally the update since we last met on budget. Any questions? No. Okay. So cash flow, we updated this as well, and we just took it through mid-April since we're meeting very early this month. So haven't had any invoices go through yet in April. But essentially, we're going to be reviewing the CTA requisition for March this afternoon with the TRC, as well as Hill and SMMA invoices. Anything else, Jonathan, that we're covering with the TRC later today?
That's it for today.
So you'll see those reflected on the next report, all the April invoices, but we're not quite there. We're 11 days into April. So otherwise, just updated this cash flow to make sure everything ties out to the 111.5 million actualizing costs through March. So contingency usage. So this again is reflective of the change orders that we're going to review today, but gives you a flavor for what's remaining, what has been utilized, and what is forecasted for hard cost contingency. So we still have 80% of the hard cost contingency remaining, which is really, we're doing well considering where we're at in construction. We're about 45% complete with construction. So nearly halfway there, and still have 80% of our contingencies remaining. Soft costs, no change in contingency usage since we last met. Any questions? So these are the three changes from CTA. Sorry, change order number 6, 7, and 8. With the various values, which puts our changes since the beginning of construction at 914,000. Parsing that out into the two buckets: hard cost contingency and soft cost contingency. We've got a draw this period of 676,000, which puts us at 3.8 remaining in hard cost, and the soft cost is still at 838,000. These are the invoices that were processed after the March committee meeting, but still in the month of March. So we had an invoice for Hill, FINA, who's the testing agent, and then SMMA. So $170,000 at the end of March that was paid out. So that's the financial report. So I was going to jump into change order.
Can I ask one
reviews.
question?
Yeah.
And you may have covered this in detail at the last meeting. The large contingency expense related to, I believe it was equipment for heating and ventilation. Is that correct? That there's a very large one.
For changes, is that?
Yeah, for
what the question is?
Contingency expense that you used. There was a big change related to, I think, estimation of heat ventilation. Is that right?
Temp heat? Is that what you're talking about? Winter conditions, temporary? Is it the temporary heat, winter conditions? Is that what you're asking?
No,
about,
there are relatively large contingencies in 7 and 8 there. I guess my question would be, what are those? And I just want to understand what they are, because all I'm asking for is if someone asked me what that was and why did that happen, I just want to be able to answer.
He's about to go through them, Tim.
Yep.
I think he's going to go through 6, 7, and 8 right now.
Okay, great. Sorry about that.
Yep. You're a little ahead. That's okay. He's about to explain it. Yep.
No worries. We will dive into the detail here. So I think maybe what you're talking about, Tim, is in change order 8. So we'll get there.
Fine. Sorry to interrupt.
No problem. Good question. So this is we basically put these into three different buckets. So this is the first bucket that has our typical changes that we vetted through the normal process of reviewing and responding to PCOs. Number 7 is the winter conditions bucket, and then number 8 is a list of other changes that we've kind of highlighted as near critical. So we wanted to push those forward. And we'll get into that in a few. So the first one here is change order number 6, and it is comprised of 5 PCOs. The first one is related to door hardware revisions. I don't know, Jen, if you want to speak to any of these changes, the door hardware and what was going on there.
Yeah, so the door hardware, that's sort of the bigger one in this change, was related to some additional ADA operators or operator on one of the doors that had not been shown in the drawings. There was also several door contacts. So these were, as we were going through the door hardware submittals, just some additional coordination, identifying some additional door hardware that needed to be added, should have, been in the design. The intent was that these equipment pieces should have been in the documents.
Can I ask you a question? Is that the hardware alone, or is that the electrical for it? So
It's
like
both.
a push button. Okay. So
Yeah, it's there's some
Security,
technology. Yep, security, wiring, there's electrical, and the actual door hardware. So it's
Okay. And you said
all
some
inclusive.
magnets too. Is that what you're talking about? Magnetic
What's that?
hold opens too? Did you say magnetic hold opens too?
No, there were no magnetic hold opens, just door
Okay.
contacts and ADA operator.
Where's the operator?
So this one was intended to be there's a secondary entrance near the nurse's office. So we identified that's sort of going to be, could be used more in and out to get closer access to the nurse's office versus the main entrance. So I thought it was important to have it at that door.
Is it needed? Is it a?
Yeah, we feel like it was
Force?
something that was discussed during the design. So we felt,
Okay.
yeah.
Sorry to get into the weeds, but I sit
No,
on the
that's
board.
fine.
Often those are a security, like they can be a security issue in schools, and that someone could just hit it and walk in if it's not tied.
It's
to
all
the
tied
security
in.
system.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
that's fine.
If the door's locked, it's not going to open. Yeah, if someone hits the button. So
Okay, and often they're just so everyone knows, like this sounds like it was just requested. They're typically only needed if the pull force is too hard, like if someone can't physically pull it, or if the clearance on the side does not allow for someone in a wheelchair to get access to it. So that's why I was asking, but sounds like it was a request, which is fine.
yeah.
Can you give us a sense of sort of the overall door hardware expenditures on the project? So like what percentage of this is of that?
Oh, it's probably minimal. Door hardware tends to be pretty expensive. A big chunk of value. I don't offhand. I can definitely check the pay rec and see what the schedule values is for door hardware in particular. But I would say that this is it's in line with what we would expect for this type of door hardware change.
It should be hundreds of thousands. It's a lot of money typically. And this includes electrical, which is why I asked. A lot of this is tied to, electrical like connections, the contacts and the button.
Right.
Sometimes it's tied to the fire alarm if they're mag holds. So yeah, there's electrical tied into this. So it's a little deceiving because it's not just the hardware. It's the power behind it, which is required. Yeah.
I mean, it would be my expectation that this is a really tiny fraction of the overall door hardware on the project. But,
yes.
Okay.
Yep, I would say definitely. And then just if no one has any additional questions on PCO 18, 22 is just related. This is more of a constructability issue with some of the sunshade devices that we have at the windows on the south elevation. So just some additional labor required to make sure that those were installed properly so that we can seal around them properly. And PCO 26, just some plumbing, BWVs, backwater valves, just some minor revisions there. So that's the plumber costs and some equipment costs for that. And then PCO 29 is adding power to we have goggle cabinets that are sanitizing. They just plug in, but we didn't, where we have them located, and these science classrooms are pretty tight with wall space and everything. We didn't have outlets there. We felt it necessary to add the outlets in those locations. We really couldn't relocate these cabinets. And then PCO 31 is just some miscellaneous, just some fire alarm tie-ins to the auditorium lighting, just as we're coordinating with the final coordination drawings.
Yep.
So that's change order 6.
Thank you, Jen. So the total value is 40,852.40. Steve, you got
It looks like Steve has a question.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say on behalf of the TRC, we reviewed each one of these in detail. We did knock a couple of them down. I think the door hardware was one that we did knock down. The electrician fully encompassing all the scope that was necessary. So we felt that this was all acceptable, and it will get my vote if we do vote.
Thank you. Any motions to approve?
I thought you were going to go through all of them, but we can do them individually.
Yeah,
Any
let's.
motions? That's fine. It's fine.
Move to approve, change order number 6 as presented today.
Okay, thank you.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call for a vote. Court Booth,
Aye.
Heather Bout,
Aye.
Peter Fashalis,
Aye.
Don Goriello. Wow, I can't even say my own name today. Don Goriello, yes. Tim Holt,
Aye.
Lori Hunter,
Yes.
Mark Howell,
Yes.
Pat Nelson,
Yes.
Chris Popoff,
Aye.
Charlie Parker,
Yes.
Matt Root,
Yes.
Steve Stashewski.
Yes.
We'll go ahead with the 7. And
All right, so change order number 7. This is related to winter conditions. And so this is essentially a number of partial billings for winter conditions split into 3 different PCOs. So PCO 20, 20.1, and 20.2. And the first one's 55, 420, 90, 76, 5, 68, 59, and then 87, 865, 40. And this essentially starts from November, mid-November, and takes us through early March for partial winter conditions costs. And I think Lori had some comments and kind of background just to kind of kick this off. So I'll hand it over to her.
Yeah, great. Thanks. I just thought it'd be helpful to frame for the committee the really great work that's been done here. Hill's taken a really strong lead on, really vetting the submissions that have come in under the winter conditions, work that we allowed and said we would consider as it came. So what the numbers you see here are after extensive, I can't even begin to describe the extensive detailed work that Hill's done to make sure that they've really compared what's come in with what was already scaled into the project and really worked through, no, that's actually part of your scope to start with. And only this portion of what's been submitted is actually going to be considered. So each of the 3 that are listed here have very, very thick packets of backup to them, which Gail and I talked early this morning about how we could share that for those who want to access it. I mean, what we've been doing is sort of pulling people in and doing it individually. The chairs have seen some, certainly TRC and Steve have gone through it all, been very thoroughly documented. So I just want to name the work that's gone into this. Part of why you're getting it in April is because it's been so much time and work to really get it pulled together. There is still a little tiny bit of documentation required from CTA to approve all of these. So what we don't want to do is hold up what we do have documentation for. So the request this morning is that we could approve these contingent on those last final pieces for the ones that we still need, and then we could release the rest. Just again, I can't say enough. Hill's really taken due diligence on our behalf here as town and school to really only support legitimate claims for these funds. So.
Yeah, and I'm happy to talk through our procedures or anything that,
Yeah.
that you might have questions on. So.
And I guess in terms of what's included here, it's a little bit of everything, right? So depending on what they submitted, there's a little bit of heat in here. I think Tim maybe wants to talk a little bit more of that, but not a huge amount because it was already winter and they would have already planned for that, et cetera. So a little bit of everything has been mixed in, but only supported as appropriate to the additional need because of the schedule change.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Sorry, do you remember, can you remind us what they thought it was going to be?
300,000.
Okay.
Now Dawn, I believe there was some clear reference to the fact that this was attributable to some issues in the documentation where the timeline was inaccurate, and therefore the contractor claimed this was our responsibility. And we discussed that perhaps the project wasn't going to bear it alone because it was not a mistake by the town. Has anything happened along those lines?
Not that I'm
No,
aware of.
no.
So are we abandoning that?
I think that's a discussion for this committee at some point, and one we have an exec session, most likely.
Okay, because I think it'd be wise for us to deal with it in a very straightforward fashion and come to some conclusion.
I mean, at the end of the day, I think these guys deserve to be paid. They did the work, and that's what we agreed to when we basically told them via CCD, construction change directive, that, you know, we were going to watch their time, watch their spending. And I think what Lori referred to is Hill's due diligence on that. And these are real numbers of what was really spent. So for now, as far as I'm concerned, you know, the contractor has, you know, in goodwill done all this work and deserves to be paid for it. And if we want to, as a committee, have a conversation after the fact, I think that's within our right.
I just would like to add that as a co-chair, I've been out on the site. I've talked to Vin, and I'm a co-chair without a lot of building experience. So, but I've been impressed with what Vin has explained to me has been his monitoring process, how they're documenting what's happening on the site. It appears very thorough to me that we've got eyes on the contractor and eyes on what's being submitted, and then being able to document what's happening. I'm pretty comfortable with it. And I just wanted to share that because I have had the opportunity to be out on the site and hear more about this.
And Vin is great and very detailed and has a lot of construction experience. So kudos to him for doing such a great job kind of keeping eyes on this. Steve, I see your hand.
Sorry, yes. So I completely agree, Cord, and I have that in the back of my mind as well. The technicalities of this require the town to move forward with approval or rejection of changes as they're submitted, because it was a construction change directive and because of the timing required to pay subcontractors that have nothing to do with whether or not there's a disagreement about who owns the work. They perform the work. So from the technical review committee point of view, we made sure that, and Hill did respond, we made sure that photographs were taken, that the schedule was reviewed in detail. The CCD actually lists individual activities that are approved for construction winter conditions, heating the facade that might not have been installed in the winter month of December rather than November. So certain aspects are looked at specifically to tasks on site. Photographs are taken to verify whether or not people are actually in the field. How many people and how many hours per day are tracked. Sometimes we've seen the ticket come in for 8 hours for 2 guys, but it was really 6 hours for 2 guys. And so we've knocked that back down to 6. So a lot of detail in what Hill is doing to really come forward with a really good effort on their behalf here to push through all the documentation. And it is hundreds of pages of every single day, every single piece of material that came to the site. And it's verified whether or not, the screws that were used on the tarp is actually real. And so a lot of detail and a lot of strikeouts, honestly, a lot of strikeouts from what CTA was submitting. Number one, I think the original cost was $150,000 and we're down to 55 for those items. So I fully stand behind number 1, 2, and 3 that are submitted here, and know that we do need to move forward contractually, because we are so close to having a full, complete change order presented to us. So I think we only have a number of days to submit it or approve it. And so that's why, as a technical review committee, Dawn and the 3 of us recommended that we bring it to the committee today.
Yeah, Steve, let me be clear. I'm completely in accord that this is an obligation that we have to honor to CTA. I was simply going back to the original discussion about why this occurred and how some accountability might be shared. So at some point, if we can close that conversation, I think that would be our obligation. But CTA certainly is due their money, and thanks for scrubbing the numbers as you say you have.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you both. Mark Howell.
So, yes, thank you for the very hard work, and it occurs to me that this kind of oversight doesn't come without cost to do, which had this not occurred, we wouldn't be incurring presumably. So where do we see those costs, and at what point do we have to deal with that, and how?
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Ian, that's part of your contract.
Yeah. I mean, we have, for our staffing purposes, we allot a certain amount of time for each one of our staff throughout the construction phase of the project. So, nothing has really changed in that regard. We still have the same team, same staffing projections. Is it heavier lifting for us to go through and document all of this and do all these reviews? Yes, but it's part of what we expect throughout the construction phase. So we've put the extra time and effort that we need to really manage this and make sure that we're presenting we think is fair and reasonable numbers to this committee. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Chris?
Yeah, thanks for all this. Is great stuff. Ian, maybe it's too early to know whether CTA will accept this lower number in general with maybe minor changes.
We have come to an agreement with them on these portions here. So they've given us clean PCOs that support these dollar values, with the exception of the documentation that Lori was saying, which is essentially an invoice from subcontractor to CTA that supports this. So,
and they're one of the signatures on these, just so if Ian, you were to scroll down, the architect, the contractor, and the owner sign this. So, that in theory, once this is signed by everyone, it is what it is. As part of this, I don't know if there's more to this CCD or not, Ian, but as far as we're concerned, these 3, part 1, part 2, part 3, that it's basically, we're at the point where everyone's in agreement that that's the amount. They're asking for the committee to move it forward, so everyone will sign it and it'll become a formal change order for the contract.
Yeah, I think just to speak to big picture here, what we were tracking for this CCD is, you know, costs. CTA is claiming that there are activities that they would have started sooner in the process, and so this set them up to be able to pay for winter conditions related to those tasks. And some of those were fireproofing the slabs, the slab on deck, slab on grade for generally buildings C and B, some work in underground utility work and sub slab work in area A, exterior masonry on building C on a few of the facades, one of the facades on windows, and then roofing on area C. So the costs that are reflected in here are generally, you know, labor costs for installing tarping around the perimeter of the building. That's the bulk of these costs here, for subs to go in and put in tarps, attach it to the steel, and get them set up so that they can heat portions of the building. You know, specifically for activities like fireproofing, you have to have a certain temperature to put on the spray applied fireproofing. So they had to tarp, they had to heat those spaces in order to hit those temperatures throughout the colder months. Material costs, you know, when it comes to concrete, there are things you can do in cold weather, such as putting in admixtures to the concrete, just to make sure that they cure properly. So that's one of the things that was accounted for here. Ground thaw blankets and whatnot for some of the utility work and sub slab prep work, just to make sure that the ground is prepared and able to dig through the colder weather. So those are the types of costs that you're seeing here for labor and material to do those types of activities. One of the things that you know, we kicked back and pushed back on was the heating costs. We really felt that CTA carried those costs, or should have carried those costs in their base bid, and we have a schedule of values line item in their bid that they've shown that they've carried heating costs for the winter months. So those costs were taken out. You know, big picture for you know, where these PCOs started. For these three, we had the original PCOs came in at $380,000 for all three of these, and we were able to take, you know, through the process of reviewing and responding. There was $160,000 that was taken out that just we didn't feel was legitimate costs, which got us down to the 219 that you're seeing here for these totals. So that's kind of big picture where we're at. I think, you know, again, this takes us through early March, and the CCD goes through the end of March. So we've got another month of costs that we need to account for. So I don't want you to think that this is the end of it, because it's not quite the end. There's still another month of costs that we need to account for, and you know, knowing what we know historically about some of these submissions, you know, CTA is it's not just going to be costs for, you know, the month of March. There could be costs that they try to put out there for previous months that they just didn't account for, that sub invoices or material invoices were late. So there might be some costs there from, you know, January, February timeframe. So we do need to be mindful of that. That this isn't the end, but it's you know, a good portion of the cost. So
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Any further questions or any motions? Don't forget, I think the ask was to approve contingent on the remaining paperwork that.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll move to approve contingent on the remaining documentation.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, let me call for a vote. Alexa joined us. Thanks for letting me know you're here, Alexa. Are you here? Did you lie to me? Is she here?
I'm here. I'm here. I'm just
Oh, there
muted.
you are.
Yes,
Oh,
yes, yes. Sorry.
okay. Nope, that's fine. I was like, I swear she texted me that she was.
I did. I did.
And thank you for that, because when things are being shared, I don't always get to see everyone. So thanks. Court
No
Booth,
problem.
Aye.
Heather Bout,
Aye.
Peter Fishalis,
Aye.
Dawn, I'm a yes. Tim Holt,
Aye.
Lori Hunter,
Yes.
Mark Howell,
Yes.
Pat Nelson,
Yes.
Chris Popoff,
Aye.
Charlie Parker,
Yes.
Matt Root,
Yes.
Steve Stashewski.
Yes.
All right, very good. Motion passes. Last one here, Ian.
Thank you. The last one is again a group of changes that were flagged because we don't want them to impact the schedule. We're trying to resolve the costs here on these items. So this one was the changes that we reviewed with the TRC on Tuesday of this week, which is why we were getting these out kind of late yesterday. But we did want to include these for review today, and it's a number of different types of changes here. And I think Gail is going to go through some of these, and SMMA is going to jump in and just kind of talk about some of the history here.
I think Gail's having some technical issues. I might just
Oh.
jump in on one piece and then
Okay.
you and SMMA can take it from there.
Yep.
I mean, obviously the big one's the auditorium. I just want to be sure everyone's clear. This is not a change in the design to the auditorium. The work that the drawing that got put into the bid didn't include all the infrastructure that was needed for the AV that we had put into the design and the scope initially. So this is what we need to do to get the designs done so that it fits what we scoped out as a building committee prior to the bid going out. So it just was a missed drawing. We just need to get it on track. CTA's waiting for this to get approved so they can keep going. We're not changing what we had initially said we were going to do. It's infrastructure, so MMN can live broadcast, and the auditorium can be what you would want an auditorium to be in 2024. So I just want to be clear, we're not changing the plan. We're just getting the drawing synced up because it was inadvertently left out. So this was cost you would have had if it had been in the bid. We're just doing it now instead of at the time. So I just want to be clear about that. And those of you who are here know that was a very extensive discussion about the AV in the auditorium. So, okay, happy to turn it back over to Ian and Jen and talk on any other.
I'll
piece.
just chime in real quick, Jen, on,
Sure.
on Jen's behalf. As an architect, these things happen. Things get missed. I have consultants miss things. I miss things. My team misses things. It doesn't change the fact that the bid would have included it had it been in the drawing. So we would have paid for it anyway. It would have been $289,000 higher. I think Lori said that, but just want to sympathize that I've never, ever had a set that's 100% like I am not perfect. My consultants aren't perfect. Every drawing set, has, and that's what contingency is for. So for what it's worth, I understand, Jen. So, something happened. And I'm sensitive to it. It happens all the time in my projects, and no one's perfect. So just want to, come out and say that, these things happen.
Yeah, thanks, Dawn. And I mean, I think it's certainly not something we like to have to deal with, especially, the size of this change order. But, what we have tried to do is, everything we can to try to mitigate this, and what can we do to bring it down. So there were some things that we did try to do. So we were able to get this down a little bit actually, but, overall we've had our AV consultant on multiple calls with the TRC, with the contractor to negotiate this down and just to get everyone to understand what this includes. So, you know, it has been, you know, discussed quite a bit. And this is just where we landed with this one with the 289. We can come back to this one. I can run through just high level what each of these are first and then open up for questions, or if anyone has any specific questions on this one. But
No, you can go ahead, Jen, run through the
yeah,
others.
so
Questions.
PCO 5, this is one that, you know, we identified early on, and we actually did issue this one early on. It's been kicking around, and finally have settled on and agreed upon this number with CTA. But there was a code change that did occur prior to bidding. We did not get this in the documents, but it was adding some additional, we have some acid neutralization tanks at each of the science classroom sinks, so that neutralizes any chemicals that get into the water before it gets into the system. So we had included, you know, one tank per 2 sinks. There's a new code requirement that actually requires a 1-to-1, so a 1 tank per sink. So with 9 science classrooms, that added 2 tanks per science classroom. So it's just the sheer sort of quantity of sinks, and as you multiply it, it becomes a sizable number. We did get this one down a little bit. It was, I think, originally 74,000. We landed at 64,000. PCO 23. I think, Tim, this might have been the one that you were questioning, but this is some HVAC related changes. Just functionally for the VRF system, there are, and I'm going to try to put my mechanical engineer hat on here, but to explain this, but there are some functional maximum lengths required for the refrigerant piping, which is the copper piping to the condensing units. So some of the lengths we showed on the drawings exceeded that. So there were some modifications that needed to be done, relocating and splitting some of the condensing units on the roof to get those line lengths down to meet those requirements. So it did require some additional copper refrigerant piping lengths and lines that needed to be installed from the roof all the way down to the lower level. So that's the 48,838.
Yeah, and from a schedule standpoint, the reason why we flagged this as near critical, you know, they need to get this work done in the walls before they can close up the walls. So, you know, their schedule has some of the walls being closed up, and you'll see in the construction presentation they've started that process in early April. So we want to get ahead of this so that they can get these lines installed, and we're not holding up any drywall.
Right. And then the last one was just some kitchen equipment coordination with some of the approved kitchen equipment in just some electrical related sort of modifications needed to be made to work with the kitchen equipment. This one is critical because they're trying to install the slab. So there are a couple underground conduits that we need to get in there before they pour that slab at the kitchen.
Yep. Yeah, and to speak on the schedule again for this particular item, they were trying to place the slab April 3rd and 4th for the kitchen slab. There is float in the schedule. They have 50 days of float with that activity. So we're currently chewing up float by not giving them direction here. So that's why we're trying to free this up, get this scope issued to them, get them moving on it so that they can pour the slab before we run out of float.
Any questions on any of these? Yes.
Yeah, thanks for all the info. I'm not as concerned about all this as I was when I first saw the email, which was surprising. In fact, Don, your comment helped a lot because it did come across as it seems like something that you know, it was pretty major, so it was surprising that it was missing. So if this is within the context of, okay, there's always something like this and you're not concerned about it, Dawn, then I'm much less concerned. My one question is this, that 289, because we're adding it now versus it being there before, is there any extra cost? Like, is it costing us more now because it wasn't there originally, or is it the same cost that it would have been anyway?
I would say the equipment costs are probably the same, but you're always paying a premium for change orders. There are markups to change orders. So, you know, generally it's 15%, you know, you're paying that premium for a change order. So there are, you know, just by the nature of a change order, you're paying a
Because
little
it's a change. You're
but
going
the
through.
equipment
Okay.
costs would be the same.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just to dig into the breakdown of this big picture, the equipment cost that Jen is talking about is about half of the cost of this PCO. So those ones are the Pro AV equipment quote that's in there. And so that one is, you know, generally where it would have landed on bid day. And then the other is infrastructure conduit, infrastructure added conduits, both in the slab and in the wall to support the AV. And that's the other half of the cost. So.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And is there, just to put it out there because it's different, I don't know. I mean, I guess if you're talking 15%, it's not a big amount, but is this ever something that I guess a question for Ian or anyone, is this something that we ever ask to share the responsibility of the difference in price? Or is it small enough that we say, no, these things happen, like Don said, and we just put this all out of contingency? Oh, and the follow-up question to that, sorry, two at the same time, is I know in our contingency earlier, we still had 80% of contingency left after this. I know it shouldn't change significantly, but what is the percentage left after this?
Can I,
My two
can
questions.
I think that
Done.
included that.
I'm not a paid professional on this project, so let me answer your first part of your question.
Okay, great. Thank you.
These things happen. I've
Okay.
never, as an architect, you know, for someone to come after the 15% and a fraction of that, like
Yeah.
this is how this operates. I mean,
Okay. I'm good then.
No one's perfect. No set of drawings is ever completely finished. That's what contingency's for. In my mind, it would be, you know, small potatoes to try to go after something. I mean, this is how business is done with drawings. No set is perfect. It really isn't. And,
Perfect.
you know,
Enough
yeah.
said. I just felt like the question had to be asked.
Yeah, no,
fair.
and I
Yep.
appreciate that. And what did you say? I think we're at 80% after these three. If I
That's
read
correct.
Ian's
Oh,
Yep.
it's
part
after these
right.
three.
It's,
Okay,
it's,
great.
it's after.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's still just hard cost contingency. We have soft
Okay.
cost
That's correct.
contingency that's, you know, in like there's not 96% of that. So these are two different buckets of contingency and this is hard cost.
Okay, great. And the TRC has recommended yes on all of these, right? Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Steve's going to talk. All right. I'm good. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Heather. Great questions. Chris.
Has anybody spotted anything else in the drawings that's missing of this magnitude or greater?
To date, no, and we don't really at this point have anything projected to this magnitude. No. I mean, there's
I
certainly
guess the
gonna be-
follow-up is something like this cause Hill and SMMA to take another look at the drawings now earlier, so we get a heads up before we run into something like this again?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly does, we're, you know, looking at where there might be some additional risk and always looking at the drawings still. I think we're at a point where we've reviewed a lot of the submittals, which is kind of your opportunity to take a fresh look. And I think some of these are identified from that. So PCO 5 was something we identified during that process early on, and it's just taken months for this one to actually come to fruition on a change order. But so, you know, I think we have been doing that but it's certainly going forward, definitely, you know, whatever we feel there may be risk on, we're looking at as soon as possible.
Yeah. I was going to echo what Jennifer said about the submittal process. I mean, that's a lot of this is flushed out through the mechanical, electrical, plumbing coordination process. A lot of it's flushed out through the submittal review process. So you start to see all the parts and pieces coming in and what exactly they're proposing for components of the building, and it forces the team to take a harder look at, you know, what exactly we're putting in place, and so that we're very far along in that process. You know, MEP coordination is wrapped up, and the submittals, there's still some submittals, but it's not a large percentage that's left. You'll start to see submittals for the tail end of the project, which is, you know, landscaping and site features and that sort of thing. So,
and I'd
I'd say
agree between,
similar.
yeah, sorry, Steve, like between the submittal process and any RFIs, like some contractors are going to pick up major scope if it's missing by now. Like you're what, probably 90% through submittals. So yeah, I don't know, I'm guessing, but you know, we're pretty far along at this point to have major scope missing. So I would echo what the professionals are saying. Go ahead.
PCO 5 is a good example of that. Like Jen said, the plumbing scope. There were a number of plumbing scope items that came in over the course of October, November, December in PRs that SMMA issued because of the plumbing scope. The price was much lower than was anticipated, so they went and did a thorough review of that and came up with a number of things that were issued as directives that we've seen already and approved already. So this one here, the 64,000, we saw a while ago. And it's now come back around, and it's kind of, I feel like it's kind of the game sometimes contractors play is when they see an opportunity, they wait until the very last minute. And so the AV is a perfect example. We saw the original price on the schedule of values or the cost update as a potential a while back, and it's been sitting there waiting for them to get their paperwork in line. And here we are, it's time to go, and it's going to impact critical path if you don't say now, you know. So we reviewed it in detail. Jen and her team and the Hill team have knocked it down in the past. They've done a couple of revisions. We've seen those. And so now, because these four are right there up against the clock, we've got to ask the committee to approve them contingent upon the removal of the reservation of rights language. So we're right there against that clock. If we waited another month, we'd impact the overall schedule, and CTA would have a real claim. So that's what the ask should be, is to approve these contingent upon removal of the reservation of rights. And the TRC is in agreement with that.
Thank you, Steve. Any other questions? Motions?
I'll move to approve.
Contingent on the language of removal of rights. Okay,
Thank you.
Just want to make sure we get that in there.
Yep.
All right.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. Alexa?
Yes.
Court?
Aye.
Heather?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Dawn, yes. Tim?
Aye.
Lori?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Charlie?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
And Steve?
Yes.
Great. The motion passes. And I just want to say another thank you to the TRC and the professionals for thoroughly going through all of these. And I can say I'm specifically not involved. I know how much work this is. It's a lot. So thank you all for your time, your efforts, your due diligence. So it's appreciated.
Yep. Thank you. All right.
All right. Are we on to construction? Awesome.
We made it to the construction presentation here. So a lot of exciting things happening in the field. They've made good progress. We're about 45% complete with the building at this point. So a lot of trades in building C, as you can see here. And these are some of the photos of the facade, so you can start to see the different colors and textures and window components being installed here, which is kind of buttoning up the exterior and other trades in the interior as well. So the the building C, the spray applied fireproofing is 95% complete. They were just going back and doing punch list items there for the spray fireproofing. The exterior framing, sheathing, air vapor barrier is 95% complete, just some touch-up work. Masonry is 70% complete. They've got the east facade 100% complete, and they're working on the north and south facades. The interior framing is at 80%. HVAC ductwork is at 70%. Electrical rough is at 33%. The lower floor, the in-wall inspections have passed there. So they're able to board up walls and close in walls on that level. The plumbing rough is 30% complete. C1 stair is done, as we reported last time. C2 is being inspected this Friday, so we hope to get that functional in the near future. The roofing's 90% complete. The windows started earlier this month, and the sheetrock started earlier this month. So that's building C. Building B is all the concrete work is now complete. The slabs on deck, the slab on grade, the spray applied fireproofing is 60% complete. Exterior framing is 40% complete. And they're working on masonry on the facades there. So you'll start to see that. Building A, we've got under slab plumbing and electrical work done. The steel detailing was completed this week. Exterior framing is ongoing. It's 75% complete, and they're still working on exterior sheathing and air vapor barrier in building A. You can start to see some of that towards the end of the photo here, and then they're also doing spray applied fireproofing. The weather is certainly more conducive to doing that without having any winter conditions in place, which is great. The site work, the south elevation, the segmental wall, retaining wall is 95% complete. This is actually what you're seeing here. This wall that we've been talking about week after week on the backside near the wood line here. Trenching and backfilling is still going on in the building footprint. And then they're shooting for the week of April vacations. They'll be out there next week doing some more paving in another portion of the parking area. So it'll be nice to have some hard surfaces in that area. Other highlights, we have completed the second round of the mock-up performance testing. So that went well this week. It happened yesterday, actually. So everything is passed at this point, which is good. The PV foundation scope is being issued to CTA. So we've been working with CMLP to get that packaged up and out the door. It should be going out by the end of this week, essentially. So we'll be able to get a price and get moving on that in the near future to support the PV project and get the foundations in place in the coming months. And then FF&E and technology is just a placeholder here, making progress on that front. Ultimately trying to get bid packages out by mid-May. So we're creeping up on that date here in the near future. Some photos, got an aerial view from earlier this week, looking down on the building from Old Marlboro Road. So you'll start to see, less of looking through the building and more of seeing it closed up around the perimeter here. This is the performance mock-up that we've been talking about. This is just a small mock-up that they do just to ensure that there's no leakage or penetration issues with water and elements. So they install the sheathing, they install the air vapor barrier. They get, you know, course of brick in here and insulation. They put in the windows, they make sure everything is completely buttoned up, and then they start testing it, and making sure that everything is you know, not leaking in any way, shape, or form. So this is the small area that they've been working on and testing on the site. So I thought I'd give you a shot of that. Windows, starting to see windows on site, which is a really good thing to button up those openings. Building interior photos. This is building C. It's kind of a snapshot of, you know, you can't just go into the building and look through it anymore. We're starting to, you know, see hallways take shape and different spaces, classrooms take shape. So this is just a shot in one of the spaces here that, you know, it has blocking in place. It has, you know, the plumbing, the electrical rough in, so you can see all those things happening in the wall here. Sheetrock's on the ground, ready to be installed. So they're loading the building with materials they need to move forward. This is stair 2 next to the elevator shaft. So this is the one that's going to be inspected Friday. Just another angle here on building C. This is the south and west facades, the elevation. So this is all the progress that they made to date. This is the area that they're trying to finish up and work their way towards building B and A. And then here's some drone captures from above. And the elevation. So that is all we had for construction update.
Great, Ian. I just want to say I was able to see it a few weeks ago. It looks amazing in person. Like the brickwork's beautiful. You know, it's starting to get closed in on the inside. You showed a couple photos of that. It's really starting to take shape. You can see some of the flexible learning spaces in the corridors and the size of the classrooms. It's really great. So hopefully we can get the group out there soon at some point. And it might be worth just a suggestion, Heather, not to make more work, but could be fun to do a quick like social media video for, you know, people can drive by and random people email and, you know, say how great it is to see progress. It might be cool once C is a little more closed in to show like C, B, and A, like, because they're at very different places.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
I love it.
Just something to think about. I'm happy to help with.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Any questions on?
No, just while I'm unmuted, that it looks awesome and it's really cool to see all the progress.
Yeah, it's great. It's great to see. This is a fun part of the, short of the finishes going in, this is really a fun part where you start to see the spaces come together and what the outside's going to look like. Matt, I see your hand.
Yeah, I'll just echo what Heather said. It does look amazing. It's very cool to see. I have two quick requests. One is just a follow-up request to see any enclosure commissioning reports that the team has generated. And then I was looking at the lead info from last time. Thank you for sharing that. It looks like we have over 60 environmental product declarations, which is great on the project. Specifically on those EPDs, in the spec section for cast in place concrete, we're asking for EPDs on the concrete, and I didn't see any concrete EPDs. So I'm wondering if we've received those. Thank you.
I can go back. Yeah, I'll go back and look, Matt. And
Super. Thanks, Jen.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah, and we do have a formal report from SGH on the commissioning now, so we can get that out.
Wonderful. Thanks, Ian.
Yep. No problem.
Any other questions on construction progress? No? All right. If not, I'd like to welcome Jason Bolger. He's the interim director of CMLP. Our next order of business is an update from CMLP, and I know a lot's been going on, and appreciate Jason taking the time to give us an update. And I know he jumped in feet first with this. So appreciate all the work that's been going on. And Jason, if you want to give us a quick update, looks like you even put some slides together. So
Absolutely.
good for you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Don.
And welcome. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Ian, you can go ahead to the next slide. I just have a few slides and I'll kind of walk everybody through where we're at and the progress that we've made. Just for an overview, the size and scope of this project is a 1.1 megawatt solar and a 2 megawatt, 4 megawatt hour battery that will work in conjunction with each other. So what this does is it gives the school 3 sources of power. We have line power from the transformer and the feeders that we have from our substation. We have the solar power and we have the battery power. And all 3 of those sources have to be balanced. So go ahead to the next slide. So here's just kind of a aerial overview. This was from the last month's aerial shot that Ian shared as to where this is happening, all the way at the end of the project behind that wall. So in that area is where the battery, the switchboard, and the manhole vault sort of solution that I'll be outlining in the future are going. One thing that we realized would be really helpful to simplify the planning of the switchboard is to tie in all the canopies into a separate vault, because the lines coming from each canopy need to kind of go into one place. So there's actually going to be a larger vault and then a smaller vault just for those. And then we now have a solution of a 6x12 manhole system, which is what we use at CMLP for every underground installation. That's where all of the wiring from the building, from the transformer, from the canopies and the solar will all sort of aggregate and then go into the switchboard next to it. So go ahead to the next slide. This just shows kind of a overview of the canopies and kind of a close-up of this section down here. We are on the agenda for the May 9th ZBA meeting to get a variance. It's hard to see, but in that inset that's blown up, it does say array S2 removed. This was something that was done that predated even me coming in January. That array was entirely in the setback area, and I think just to be pretty sure that there wouldn't be problems, that was kind of taken out of the equation. But there are still 4 canopy panels that are going to have footings or overhang into the 40-foot setback. So I've been working with the building commissioner and the town planner to make sure that we have everything ready. Council is supporting us with this effort, and we don't foresee any issues with that. But obviously, we want to make sure that we get the variance so that we don't have any problems with those footings extending into that area. I think it's only about 10 or 12 feet, or maybe 15 at the most, into that 40-foot setback area. So go ahead to the next slide. This just shows the rooftop current design. So the canopy drawings have been stamped. They're ready. These drawings should be stamped this week and will be ready to go out to bid. So that's good. And right now, this doesn't have any, we don't have any concerns with the existing HVAC or other equipment up on the roof and the panel design. There's some flexibility built in there. So we feel very confident that this approach will work. Go ahead on the next slide. This just shows the battery storage. So when we talk about battery, we have power and energy. So the power is the 2 megawatts. It's how much electricity can it provide. And then 4 megawatt hours is the total energy that it contains. So we don't have to dispatch it for 2 hours at 2 megawatts. We can do anything very low over a long period of time or very high over that 2-hour period. The original sizing of the battery was a 1x4, which would not allow as much power. So it was upsized a little bit just for the inverters, not the total storage. And then what that means also is, as you saw, was about a 1 megawatt solar. And so that means this battery can absorb the solar for about 4 hours without causing any impact on the overall distribution grid at CMLP. And then, of course, with a 2 megawatt battery, it can push back up to 2 megawatts for 2 hours. Next slide. So obviously with any project, as we just heard, there's concerns and timelines that have to be met. So, when I got into this project, there were some concerns. I just want to outline some of what those concerns were and then what we've done to address them and kind of where we are. So the first problem that we had is that, we need a switchboard. This is what ties in the electricity from all of those sources and allows us to, power the school with a battery or power the school with a solar or power the school with line power, make sure that all of that is working properly. So you don't just go, to Amazon to buy a switchboard. These are designed with your specifications from your project. And then usually you take a design and you go out to bid. And so in order to get that design, you need to know the exact specifications of the solar. And the solar was dependent on the variance and the battery size, and the battery was dependent on the financials, and the financials were dependent on, the total solar volume and the overall grid and the ISO New England. And so it was a little tricky to get the final specifications outlined because there were so many dependencies and because those targets kept moving. So that was one concern that we had. Another one was just that when we took those specifications, the draft specifications based on what we knew, and we brought them out to vendors, people just weren't interested. Lead times on some switchboards are 40 to 60 weeks. And these manufacturers just have the liberty to not sort of do business the same way that they once did. So whereas, you could shop things around, get some input, finalize your designs, and then go out to bid and be pretty, certain that you'd get 2 to 5 bids back. Manufacturers don't want to do custom solutions now because they're still dealing with the remnants of supply chain shortages from the pandemic. So what they would rather do is tell you sort of what they can do if you give them what you need. And so that's been a shift for our consultants who help us with the design of the switchboards. So we've been working with them to try to get sort of clearer expectations and a better path so that we can guarantee a much shorter lead time. It is possible. We're seeing lead times between like 16 and 30 weeks for some of these things if you can work with the manufacturers. But of course, that's also dependent on what the procurement looks like, right? If you're sourcing this for power systems, it might be one thing, but if it's for a project like this, it might have to be bid in a different way. So there's that. And then just the actual coordination, we have SDA who's doing the solar design and the battery design. We have PLM, we have SEL, we have the manufacturers, and then we have all the other people that you guys are familiar with from the architects and the construction, general contractor, and then all the other subs. So we're dealing with all these people on a regular basis. So go ahead to the next slide. So here's some of the things that we've done. Pictured there below is Mary Bolso. She's a new 8 to somewhere under 20-hour a week limited status employee that we brought on. Mary has tons of experience as a PM on building projects, on school projects, on solar projects. She does a lot of work with DCAM and the state on special projects, including greening, electrification, solar panels. And she's worked with SMMA before, she's worked with CTA before, she's familiar with Hill. So it was really lucky that we found her and she had availability with her project load to slide in. The goal here is that, we have an engineering team that's been working on switchboard design and trying to stay on top of all those things. But obviously, like a car hits a pole and suddenly the engineering team is focusing on restoring power and figuring out how to safely, get their crews in to fix things. So we want to make sure that people have the bandwidth to stay on top of all of the different vendors and third parties that will allow us to be on time and have deliverables that won't impact the overall project. So, Mary will be attending and has been attending the Tuesday morning and afternoon meetings. She's also meeting with the engineering team to get, sort of information and feedback from them. She's also establishing relationships with the vendors and trying to figure out what she can do to help and make sure that things aren't slow. So that's good. Because the switchboard design wasn't finalized and we don't know where that conduit is going, that's where that manhole system solution came about. So basically the engineering team worked with some third parties and, I think the real concern was that typically what we do in Concord is we have this manhole design for every underground project where we have a tie-in, and it's familiar to our line crew. What was kind of proposed as an interim solution was not familiar to them and would have been kind of a unique one-off. And so I think they were trying to balance the need to get something, conclusive so that people could move forward, but also not have it be so drastically unique that it would require specialized training, because what you don't want is a problem and then people show up and they don't know how to service that environment. So this design is very consistent with what we use everywhere else. it allowed us to buy something off the shelf with a 1 to 2 week lead time instead of, you know, something that had to be custom designed or poured, cast on site. So what that will do, as I mentioned, is tie in all of the conduit from the different locations and allow the crew to then wire things over to the switchboard, which will go in on top of a, you know, poured concrete pad and then some sort of external structure in that area behind the wall. And then, you know, next we've been working with SMMA. What we have are the canopies that have these foundations. And so we had to figure that out. Luckily, we've got the stamp drawings there. But then there was an issue because, you know, CMLP and SDA don't know anything about the drainage. It's going to go under the parking lot. But they do know where the drainage comes off of the panels. So SMMA has been incredibly helpful in trying to create a solution where they can take on some of that work, or at least find out who can get us from the end of the downspout over to where it needs to drain into, so that we're not slowing down, you know, pouring those foundations or paving the road or the parking lot. And then, as I mentioned, the variance, council was originally going to handle the variance, and they had recommended that the school apply. And then on the last day of the deadline in February, they said, actually, we think CMLP should apply, but you still need to get the following documents. And so that was on the end of February 29th. So then we basically had until the end of March to apply for the May meeting. And that's because of the notices to abutters that go out where they have a 45-day-ish lead time before, you know, from when you apply to when you're on the agenda. Next slide, please. So again, our main objectives are to not slow down the project, right? We are not as concerned as to when those panels go online as we are concerned that we don't have any impact to the schedule of the construction work for any of the contractors or the architects. You know, we want to be out of the mix as much as possible and just kind of separate these projects. Obviously, like, you know, in an ideal world on paper, they can be completely separate, but we've got people working in the same areas, tying in, you know, equipment from one thing to another. So there has to be some coordination. We're trying to, you know, make the regular meetings. I've been going to these, I think this is my third meetings, just to stay on top of what's happening and make sure that we have our people talking to Hill and SMMA and CTA. And then our next phase really is getting the procurement going for our 3 bids. So we're going to be bundling the solar bids as one, and then the battery bid will be another, and then the switchboard will be a third. And I'll be working with Gail and the town's finance team to, you know, go out to bid for these things and use whatever mechanisms we can to try to secure the equipment as soon as possible. And so, yeah, so that's kind of my presentation. And then I'm happy to answer any questions that the committee has.
Thank you, Jason. That was really helpful information and hopefully answers a lot of the questions that the committee and maybe the public have right now. I know, like I alluded to when I introduced you, you've had a lot going on recently with this, and appreciate you guys making this a priority. And like you said, one of your objectives is not slowing our project down. So we're very appreciative of that. And I think the addition of Mary as a project manager is critical. That's a great role, and appreciate you guys doing that, because my understanding is she's been very helpful and hopefully be that liaison between your CMLP group and our project. So thank you for all the hard work, and thank you for prioritizing this and bringing Mary on board. So many, many thanks from our committee. Does anyone have any questions for Jason?
Yeah, I do. Well, first off, thanks, Jason. This is an excellent presentation, and I appreciate you bringing all the issues forward. I would like to suggest that we continue to have this as a standing agenda item going forward until we've got all the scheduling issues, you know, completely locked down and understand whether or not there is any schedule impact, and also whether there's going to be any PCOs in relation to this. And I'd love to hear from Hill and SMMA at this point on, you know, sort of where they feel they are in this process.
It can be a standing agenda item. Happy to do that. I can't promise Jason's availability. It sounds like he's been attending meetings as he can. And if you're here and can speak to it, Jason, that's great. Otherwise, if you don't mind, we meet once a month. So if you are available, yeah, just shoot us a note with an update if for some reason you're not, but thank you, Mark, for suggesting that, and thank you, Jason, for being available as you can
I'd be
be.
comfortable with the project manager also, if that makes sense as a part of her responsibilities. I do think that it's really important for the community that we make it a priority for this committee to, ensure coordination between these two major investments. The part of the context of this that I'd like to point out is that we're also needing to address some grid reliability issues. And this installation, the sooner it comes online, the better from the perspective of the electric grid for our town and community. And so I think that it's important for us to recognize that this is potentially a piece of that solution with regard to solar saturation and the impact on the grid. And that's going to be the subject of the special town meeting that the select board has opened and closed the warrant for already. So we're addressing this as a urgent issue for our community, and this is just one piece of a very complicated set of issues.
Thank you, Mark. I just want to be really clear. This is not our project. And this is not for our committee to oversee. This is for us to coordinate with and provide the infrastructure for the needs of the CMLP project. So I just want to draw that line in the sand. This project is separate from what we have control over. Sure, it impacts our project, and there's a level of coordination that we've always been committed to and that SMMA has been aware of. It's helpful now to have Jason involved and Mary involved. I'd like to keep her out of reporting to our committee if possible. I'd prefer Jason or just an update from you guys. She has other roles and responsibilities, is my understanding, as I understand roles. But I think it is helpful for us to know what's going on, to understand the impact on our project, but we cannot control this project. This is not within our responsibility. So I just want to be really clear on that. But I appreciate the concern, Mark. I understand from a town level, what is needed here. I just want to be really clear that it's not our committee's responsibility. So,
yep.
Any other questions?
I can
Ian,
speak
do you
to
want to? Yep. Perfect.
Yeah. I can speak to the scope that we've been coordinating with CMLP and Jason and his team. So I'll package it up into 4 buckets here. So the first one being everything that we did through the design phase, which is essentially all the underground conduit that goes out to the PV arrays in the parking lot. So that was all captured in the 100% bid set. So that was part of the base bid. That's behind us. CTA owns that infrastructure and has put some of it in place already, right? So the other bucket is, essentially what Jason was talking about here with addition of manholes and some of the solutions for getting all the infrastructure to tie in. That's something that we've worked out more recently with the teams. And so that is something that we're going to be issuing to CTA and subs to perform that work. So that's another bucket. The other one is the foundations that I mentioned earlier on in the presentation. So essentially each one of these PV arrays in the parking lot has a drilled caisson, a series of drilled caisson foundations that need to go in place. And we wanted to coordinate that with site work and parking lot construction. It's a pretty messy activity. So we want to get that done first before you start putting in parking areas and curbs and things of that nature. So that's the next scope item that we're having CTA and subs coordinate and install. And then the last one is what is the last one? I had a fourth one on my mind. Oh, the stormwater drainage that SMA is designing, and just making sure that the PV arrays are draining properly and tying into the stormwater drainage that's already in place for the middle school. So those are the buckets. The first one is captured in CTA's base bid. The other ones are going to be presented as essentially change orders, but the idea is that they're not going to be funded by the middle school project. They're going to be funded by the PV project. So hopefully hopefully that summarizes what you were asking.
Thank you, Ian. It does.
Yep. Good.
Great, good questions, Mark. Anyone else? You did such a great job, Jason. There's not a lot of questions, so.
Really?
Thank you for even the presentation. It's helpful, so.
No problem.
Yeah, I
Thank
guess
you.
maybe just one follow-up on that. So given all of that, Ian, what is the level of schedule risk to the middle school project that's being introduced here, or how much of the remaining schedule flow does it consume, or if any?
So when we talk about schedule, all of this scope is outside of the building footprint, so it's not impacting any infrastructure within the building. And the good thing about site work is most of it's not on the critical path. The building itself is on the critical path, and so there's some flexibility on how CTA sequences this work. We don't want them to do work out of sequence, which is why we're thinking and planning out certain aspects like the foundations for the PV array, getting those in place first before we have them develop the parking areas. So I think that there's opportunity to resequence things as they need to. And the idea is to not impact schedule, to get ahead of these things. And that's what we were working towards here.
And you didn't mention it, but I'm assuming that the vaulting work that Jason was talking about doesn't impact the schedule for the final building electrical tie-in?
No, they've already installed the permanent transformer for the building, and they have power into the building at this point, that we can switch over to permanent power. We have a solution for it. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else? Last chance? Got Jason if we have any
I'll be
questions?
back next month.
Appreciate it, Jason. Thank you for your hard work, your presentation, all the information, and thank Mary on our behalf as well.
I will do. Thank you.
Great. Nothing else there? If not, we can move on to new business. Anyone have any new business to share? Okay, sounds like that's a no. I'll take silence as a no. All right, next order of public comment. Anyone in the public have anything to ask, say? Please identify yourself, turn your camera on, or raise your hand. Quiet group today. All right. I will also take silence as a no. So next steps, next meeting. Ian, what are we into? May at this point, huh?
We are into May. Let's see. The 16th of May is the next meeting.
Okay, 16th of May. Same time, same.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah, so about a month from now. All right. Nothing else? Anyone? Last chance? Last call? If not, almost 9 o'clock on the nose, 9:03. I know we had a couple members that needed to step off, Peter and Steve, by 9. So came pretty close to that. All right, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, and a second.
Seconded.
All right, very good. Thank you all. Enjoy your day. Enjoy your vacation week if you're going away. We'll see everyone next month.
Thanks
Thank you
so
all very
much.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Yeah.
you.